She wrapped her only coat around a crying boy at a bus stop and gave him half for dinner. Hours later, a knock came at her door. The child's father stood there, a powerful mafia boss who controlled half the city. Her simple act of kindness had just made her the most protected woman in Chicago. And he wasn't letting her go. The rain hit like bullets against Elena's thin jacket as she counted her tips for the third time. $23. She'd worked a double shift at Miller's Diner, and $23 was all she had to show for it. Should have been a lawyer, she muttered, shoving the crumpled bills into her pocket. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Education is the only way out, Elena. But college tuition didn't pay itself, and neither did rent in Chicago. The bus was late. Of course it was. Elena huddled under the plastic shelter, watching the rain create rivers along the gutters. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, and the smell of grease from the diner clung to her hair. She just wanted to get home, collapse on her second-hand couch, and forget this day ever happened. That's when she heard it, a sound that cut through the drumming rain.
Crying.
Not the annoying kind, the desperate kind. The kind that came from somewhere deep and broken. Elena's head snapped toward the noise. There, on the bench, barely visible in the dim streetlight, sat a little boy. He couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and his small body shook with sobs and cold. People rushed past him. A man in a business suit. A woman with grocery bags. A teenager plugged into headphones. Everyone saw him. No one stopped. Elena's chest tightened. She knew that feeling, being invisible when you needed someone most. "Hey," she said softly, approaching the bench. "Hey, sweetheart. Are you okay?" The boy looked up at her with enormous brown eyes swimming in tears. He wore expensive-looking clothes, a navy blue sweater and pressed pants, but they were soaked through. His lips had a bluish tint. "Where are your parents?" Elena asked, crouching beside him despite the puddles soaking into her jeans. The boy just cried harder, his small frame trembling violently. Elena didn't think. She peeled off her jacket, her only decent jacket, and wrapped it around his shoulders. It swallowed him, but at least it was dry inside. "It's okay," she whispered, rubbing his back. "You're going to be okay." The boy buried his face in the jacket, his crying softening to hiccups. Elena's stomach growled, reminding her she'd skipped lunch to cover someone's shift. She reached into her bag and pulled out the dinner roll she'd saved from the diner, wrapped in a napkin, slightly squashed but still good. "You hungry?" she asked. The boy peeked out from the jacket. His lower lip quivered. Elena tore the roll in half and held out the bigger piece.
"Here."
"It's not fancy, but it's warm." Well, it was warm an hour ago. Tiny fingers reached out and took the bread. The boy nibbled at it, his eyes never leaving her face. "I'm Elena," she said, sitting beside him and biting into her half. "What's your name?" "Leo," he whispered. His voice was so quiet she almost missed it.
"Le."
"That's a strong name. You know what? You look like a little lion." She made a silly growling face, and for the first time, the corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Where do you live, Leo? Can you tell me your address?" He shook his head, fresh tears spilling over. Okay. Don't worry." Elena pulled him closer, letting him lean against her side. "We'll figure it out. How about this? I'll tell you about the weirdest customer I had today. This guy ordered pancakes with ketchup. Can you believe that? Ketchup on pancakes." Leo's eyes widened in horror, and Elena laughed. "Right? I almost called the police. That should be illegal." She kept talking, making up ridiculous stories about the diner, the woman who tried to pay with Monopoly money, the kid who had broccoli in his dad's coffee cup. Anything to distract him from the cold and fear. Leo's grip on her hand was tight, like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. 20 minutes passed. The rain didn't let up. Then Elena heard it, the screech of tires. A black SUV with tinted windows slammed to a stop in front of the bus shelter. Her heart kicked into overdrive. Two men in dark suits jumped out. They weren't police. They moved with military precision, their eyes scanning like hawks. "Leo," the first man shouted, relief flooding his face.
Jesus Christ, Leo.
The boy's head whipped around. "Marcus." The men rushed forward, and Elena instinctively pulled Leo closer. "Who are you?" "Where's security?" Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled panic. He knelt in front of Leo, checking him over. "Are you hurt? Did anyone?" "She helped me," Leo said quietly, pointing at Elena. "She gave me her coat." The second man was already on his phone. "We found him." "Yes, sir. He's safe. Southwest corner of Michigan and 18th. "Yes, sir. Right away." Marcus looked at Elena properly for the first time. His expression shifted from relief to something else, assessment. "Thank you. We've been looking for over an hour."
He
slipped away from us at the park." Elena stood slowly, her mind racing. Security? Who had security for a kid?
He was freezing, she said.
"You should get him home. And maybe," she bit her tongue before saying, "maybe watch him better." "We will." "Thank you." Marcus gently lifted Leo into his arms. "Let's go, buddy. Your dad's losing his mind." "Wait," Leo said, reaching for Elena. "Your jacket." "Keep it," Elena said, forcing a smile even though she'd need every layer she owned for the walk home. "Looks better on you anyway, Lion." Leo hugged the jacket tighter, his eyes locked on hers as Marcus carried him to the SUV. The second man pressed something into Elena's hand. She looked down, a crisp $100 bill. "I can't." "You can," he said firmly. "For your kindness." Before she could protest, they were gone. The SUV pulled away, leaving Elena standing in the rain with $100 in her hand and a strange heaviness in her chest. She didn't know it then, but that moment, that simple choice to share her bread with a crying child, had just changed everything. Because Leo wasn't just any little boy. And his father didn't forget debts. Especially not ones paid in kindness. Elena's apartment was a shoebox with delusions of grandeur. One room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen all at once. The bathroom was so small you had to step outside to change your mind, as her late father used to joke. But it was hers. Mostly. The landlord technically owned it, but Elena paid rent when she could scrape it together. She'd made it home just after midnight, soaked to the bone and shivering. The $100 bill sat on her tiny counter like it might disappear if she looked away. She'd stared at it for 10 minutes, thinking about everything it could buy. Groceries, the electric bill, new shoes without holes in the soles. But something about it felt heavy. Wrong almost. Elena shook her head. She was overthinking. A child had been in danger. She'd helped, and someone had given her money. Simple. Normal. Nothing weird about expensive security details and 5-year-olds in designer clothes. She peeled off her wet clothes and changed into her softest pajamas, a worn t-shirt with a faded Chicago Cubs logo and flannel pants. Her hair hung in damp tangles around her face. Too tired to deal with it. The instant ramen was almost ready when the knocking started. Not normal knocking. Not the tap-tap of a neighbor borrowing sugar. This was firm. Authoritative. The kind of knock that said, "Open this door, or we'll make our own entrance." Elena's heart stuttered. It was past midnight. Nobody knocked on her door past midnight unless something was very wrong. She crept toward the door, her hands shaking slightly. "Who is it?" "Miss Rossi." A man's voice, professional and clipped. "We need to speak with you. It's about earlier tonight."
Leo.
Elena's mind raced. Had something happened? Was he hurt? She fumbled with the chain lock and yanked the door open. Two men in dark suits stood in her hallway. The same men from the bus stop. She recognized Marcus immediately. But it was the man standing behind them who stole every ounce of air from her lungs. He was tall, maybe early 40s, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His suit probably cost more than her entire year's rent. But it wasn't the clothes that made her freeze. It was his presence, the way he commanded space without saying a word. His eyes were dark, calculating, and fixed entirely on her. "Miss Rossi," he said, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "May we come in?" It wasn't really a question. Elena stepped back on instinct, and the three men entered her cramped apartment. Suddenly, the space felt even smaller. They didn't belong here, not with their tailored suits and polished shoes among her thrift store furniture and peeling wallpaper. The man in charge looked around with no expression, taking in every detail. Elena felt exposed, like he could read her entire life story from the unmade futon and the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. "I'm Alessandro Moretti," he said finally, turning those dark eyes back to her. "Leo is my son." The name Moretti hit her like cold water. Even Elena, who barely watched the news, had heard that name. Whispered in the diner. Mentioned in newspapers. Alessandro Moretti, businessman, they called him. But everyone knew what that really meant. Her mouth went dry. "Is Leo okay?" Something flickered in Alessandro's expression.
Surprise, maybe. He's fine.
"Thanks to you. I didn't do anything special. He was just
Alone.
terrified." And everyone else walked past him. Alessandro took a step closer. Not threatening, but intentional. "You gave him your coat. Your food. You stayed with him in the rain when you could have gotten on your bus and forgotten he existed." Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "He's a kid. What was I supposed to do?" "Exactly what everyone else did." "Nothing." Alessandro reached into his jacket, and Elena's breath caught. But he pulled out an envelope. "I wanted to thank you properly." He held it out. Elena didn't take it. "My security already gave me money," she said quietly. "That was from them. This is from me." Alessandro's voice was patient, like explaining something to a child. "Open it." Elena took the envelope with numb fingers. Inside were bills. A lot of bills. She didn't count them, but her eyes caught the number on the first one. $500. And there were several more beneath it. "I can't accept this." She shoved the envelope back toward him. "It's too much." Alessandro didn't take it. "It's not enough. My son is everything to me. You kept him safe. I just gave him bread and told him stupid stories. You gave him kindness when he needed it most." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "That's not something I can put a price on. But I can try." Elena set the envelope on her counter, next to the $100 bill. "I appreciate it really. But I can't take thousands of dollars for being a decent person. That's just what anyone should do." The room fell silent. Marcus and the other guard exchanged glances. Alessandro stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Most people," he said slowly, "would have taken the money. I'm not most people." "No," his gaze intensified. "You're not."
Elena shifted uncomfortably.
"Look, I'm glad Leo's okay. That's all I wanted. You don't owe me anything." Alessandro studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was small, barely there, but it transformed his face from intimidating to almost human. "You're either very brave or very naive, Miss Rossi." "Probably the second one," Elena admitted. Alessandro picked up the envelope and slid it back into his jacket. "Very well. But I don't forget debts, especially ones I can never truly repay." He handed her a card instead, thick, cream-colored, with just a phone number embossed in black. "If you ever need anything at all, you call this number." Elena took the card, if only to end this surreal conversation. "Okay. I mean it." Alessandro's voice dropped, serious and almost urgent. "Chicago can be dangerous for people like you. Good people. If you're ever in trouble, I'll call." She managed a small smile. "Thank you for checking on me. And tell Leo the first said hi." Alessandro nodded once, then gestured to his men. They moved toward the door like a well-trained unit. At the threshold, Alessandro paused and looked back. "You really didn't recognize my name, did you?" Elena shook her head honestly. That smile appeared again, slightly wider this time. "Good night, Miss Rossi." The door closed, and Elena stood alone in her apartment, holding a business card with no name and wondering what the hell just happened. Outside in the hallway, Marcus leaned toward Alessandro. She refused the money. I noticed, Alessandro said quietly, staring at Elena's door. What do you want us to do? Alessandro was silent for a moment. Then, watch her. Quietly. Make sure she's safe. Sir, she's just a waitress. She's the woman who saved my son. Alessandro's voice went cold. And that makes her worth protecting. He walked away, but something had shifted. In all his years navigating Chicago's underworld, Alessandro had met thousands of people. Liars, thieves, schematics, and fools. But someone who refused money for genuine kindness, that was dangerous in its own way. Because it meant Elena Rossi was exactly what she appeared to be, truly good. And in his world, that was rarer than diamonds. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through her single window and the smell of burnt toast. She'd slept through her alarm and now had exactly 20 minutes to get ready for the morning shift at Miller's Diner. She threw on her uniform, a blue dress that had seen better days, and grabbed her bag. The business card from last night sat on her counter. She almost threw it away, then changed her mind and tucked it into her wallet. Just in case. The morning was crisp and cold. Elena hurried toward the bus stop, her breath forming small clouds in the October air. She didn't notice the black sedan parked across the street. Didn't see the man in the driver's seat lift a camera and take several photos of her walking down the sidewalk. Marcus lowered the camera and spoke into his phone. Subject leaving apartment. Heading east on foot. Follow at a distance, came Alessandro's voice through the earpiece. And Marcus? Don't let her see you. Understood. Inside his downtown office, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, Alessandro sat behind a mahogany desk, his phone on speaker. Papers were spread before him, but his attention was elsewhere. What do we know? He asked. Another voice crackled through the phone. Tony, his best information man.
Elena Maria Rossi.
26 years old. Born in Chicago, South Side. Parents deceased. Father died when she was 16, mother 2 years ago. Cancer. She dropped out of Northwestern University in her junior year to take care of her mom. Never went back. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Go on. Works double shifts at Miller's Diner on South Clark. Has for 3 years. Pays rent on a studio apartment, barely. She's 2 months behind on utilities, 1 month behind on rent. No criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. No drug use, no connections to any organizations. Tony paused. Boss, she's clean. Like, unusually clean. I couldn't find dirt if I planted it myself. Bank accounts. 1 checking account. Currently has $87. She's got student loan debt about $40,000. Makes payments when she can, but she's missed a few. No credit cards. No assets. No car. Alessandro leaned back in his chair, processing. Elena Rossi was exactly what she appeared to be, a young woman struggling to survive in a city that didn't care whether she made it or not. What about friends? Family? No living family. Few friends, mostly coworkers. She keeps to herself. Neighbors say she's quiet, polite. Always says hello. One old lady on her floor says Elena helps her carry groceries sometimes. Tony's tone shifted slightly. Boss, this girl's got nothing. No angles, no schemes. She's just getting by. Alessandro was silent for a long moment. Keep digging. I want to know everything. There's nothing left to find. Then find it anyway. He hung up and stared at the Chicago skyline. Leo had asked about the nice lady 3 times this morning. His son, who barely spoke to strangers, who'd been traumatized into silence after his mother's death 2 years ago, had connected with this woman in minutes. Alessandro's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. She's at work. Diner on South Clark. We have eyes on all entrances. Good. Elena barely had time to breathe during the morning rush. The diner was packed with construction workers, students, and office employees grabbing coffee before starting their days. Her feet ached, her back protested, but she smiled at every customer. "More coffee, hon?" she asked the man at table 6. "You're a lifesaver," he said, pushing his cup forward. Elena poured, moved to table 8, took an order at table 3, delivered pancakes to table 10. The rhythm was automatic now. She could do this in her sleep. At the counter, old Mr. Peterson, a regular who'd been coming here since before Elena was born, waved her over. "Elena, sweetheart, you look tired." "I'm fine, Mr. P." She refilled his coffee without asking. He always wanted refills. "How's your daughter?" "Pregnant again. 4th grandkid." His wrinkled face beamed. "You should find yourself a nice boy. Settle down."
Elena Lauged.
"Maybe when I win the lottery." "You're too good for this place," Mr. Peterson said seriously. "Smart girl like you should be doing something better." "I like it here," Elena said, and meant it. The diner wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. The people were real. Besides, who else would make sure you don't put too much sugar in your coffee? Outside, Marcus sat in a booth at the coffee shop across the street, laptop open, pretending to work. His eyes never left the diner's entrance. A second man, Vincent, sat in a parked car down the block. A third watched from a rooftop 2 buildings over. "Anyone suspicious?" Marcus said into his concealed mic. "Negative," came Vincent's response. "All clear from up top," the third man confirmed. Elena had no idea she was the most protected waitress in Chicago. That afternoon, Alessandro received a folder. Inside were photos. Elena walking to work, Elena laughing with an elderly customer, Elena sitting on her fire escape during her break, eating a sandwich. There was also a list of everything she owned, 7 outfits, mostly secondhand, 12 books, all from the library, a laptop that was 6 years old, a phone with a cracked screen, no television, no jewelry except for a simple silver necklace with her mother's wedding ring on it. Alessandro studied the photos for longer than necessary. In each one, despite everything, Elena was smiling. Not the fake smile people wore, like armor. A real smile. Like she'd found something good in a world that had given her every reason to be bitter. His office door opened. Marcus entered and stood at attention. "Sir, she's finishing her shift."
No incidents.
Though he hesitated. "What?" "A man's been hanging around the diner. Watching her. Not one of ours." Alessandro's expression went cold.
Description.
Caucasian, mid-30s, leather jacket. "He's been there 2 hours, ordered 1 coffee. Keep staring at her section. Get a photo. Run it through our database." Alessandro stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "And Marcus? If he approaches her, I want to know immediately." "Yes, sir." After Marcus left, Alessandro walked to his window and looked out over the city. Somewhere down there, Elena Rossi was finishing her shift, probably counting her tips, probably worrying about bills she couldn't pay. She'd refused his money, refused his help. But whether she wanted it or not, Elena Rossi was under his protection now. Because in Alessandro's world, debts were sacred. And kindness, true, selfless kindness, was the rarest currency of all. Someone had finally shown it to his son. He'd be damned if he let the world break her for it. The evening shift was brutal. A bachelorette party had taken over 3 tables, ordering everything on the menu and leaving a mess that looked like a food fight crime scene. Elena's tip came to $12 and a lipstick-stained napkin with "You're awesome" written in pink. She'd take it. By the time Elena clocked out at 9 p.m., her feet felt like they'd been hit with hammers and her lower back screamed with every step. She grabbed her thin jacket from her locker, said goodbye to Tommy the cook, and pushed through the diner's glass door into the cool October evening. And froze. Leo stood on the sidewalk, holding her jacket, the one she'd given him at the bus stop. It had been cleaned and looked brand new, the tears she'd never had time to mend somehow magically repaired. 2 suited men flanked him like bookends. Marcus gave her a small nod.
Elena.
Leo's face lit up like Christmas morning. He ran toward her, jacket clutched in both hands. I brought your coat back. Elena's heart melted. She crouched down to his level, ignoring the protests from her tired knees. Leo. Hey, buddy. You didn't have to return it. Yes, I did, he held it out solemnly. You were cold because of me. I was fine. She took the jacket, noticing it felt different. Heavier. You look good. Feeling better? Leo nodded enthusiastically. Daddy said I have to always stay with Marcus now.
Even when I don't want to.
Your daddy's smart. Elena ruffled his hair. Getting lost is scary, huh? Not when you were there. Leo grabbed her hand. You made the rain not scary. A throat cleared behind them. Deep, familiar. Elena looked up. Alessandro Moretti stood 3 feet away, hands in his pockets, watching the interaction with an unreadable expression. In the diner's neon glow, he looked different, less intimidating, more human. Almost tired. Mr. Moretti. Elena stood quickly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She was suddenly very aware of how she must look after a double shift. Wrinkled uniform, messy ponytail, probably smelling like coffee and grease. Miss Rossi, he stepped closer. I hope we're not bothering you. No, I wasn't expecting. She gestured helplessly at Leo, at the jacket, at everything. Leo insisted on returning your coat personally. He's been talking about you nonstop. Alessandro's expression softened when he looked at his son. I couldn't deny him. Leo tugged on Elena's hand. Do you work tomorrow? Can I come see you again? Leo, Alessandro said gently. Miss Rossi is very busy. It's okay, Elena smiled at the boy. I work most days. But you don't have to visit me, sweetie. I'm sure you have more fun things to do. Nothing's more fun than you, Leo said with the brutal honesty only children possessed. Elena's chest squeezed. When was the last time someone had wanted to see her? When was the last time she'd mattered to anyone? Alessandro studied her face, and Elena had the uncomfortable feeling he could read every thought. It's late, he said finally. Let me drive you home. Oh, no, that's not necessary. The bus stop is 4 blocks away. It's dark. And Chicago isn't safe this time of night. His tone left no room for argument.
Please.
Let me do this one small thing. Elena hesitated. Every instinct screamed that accepting favors from men like Alessandro Moretti was dangerous. She'd heard the stories, the rumors. People in his world didn't do anything without expecting something in return. But Leo was looking at her with those hopeful eyes, and Alessandro's offer seemed genuine. Besides, 4 blocks in the dark did make her nervous. Last week, she'd seen a mugging 2 streets over. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Alessandro's shoulders relaxed slightly, like he'd been expecting more resistance. The car's this way. The car was a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Elena would make in 5 years. The leather interior was soft as butter, and it even had heated seats. Leo climbed in beside her in the back, immediately chattering about his day. And then I built a fort with all my pillows, and Marcus said it was the best fort ever. Right, Marcus? Best fort I've ever seen, Marcus confirmed from the front passenger seat, his lips twitching.
Alessandro Drove.
Elena watched his hands on the steering wheel, steady, confident. He navigated the streets like he owned them. Your address? He asked, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Elena rattled it off, feeling self-conscious. He'd been in her apartment, but somehow this felt more invasive. She could see him calculating, understanding exactly what neighborhood she lived in. The kind where rent was cheap, because everything else was falling apart. Leo filled the silence, telling Elena about his toys, his room, his favorite movies. She listened and responded, but part of her was hyper-aware of Alessandro's presence. The way he occasionally glanced back at them, the small smile that appeared when Leo laughed at something she said. Too soon, they pulled up in front of her building. The contrast was stark, the pristine Mercedes against the cracked sidewalk and flickering streetlight. Thank you for the ride, Elena said, gathering her things. Wait. Alessandro turned in his seat to face her. Elena, may I call you Elena? She nodded, unable to find her voice. I know my world makes you uncomfortable. I can see it. His dark eyes were intense, but not unkind. But my son has connected with you in a way he hasn't with anyone since his mother died. That means something to me. Elena's breath caught.
I'm sorry.
About his mother. 2 years ago, Alessandro's jaw tightened. Cancer. She was gone within months. I understand. Elena's hand went to the necklace at her throat, her mother's ring. I lost my mom 2 years ago too. Same thing. Something shifted in Alessandro's expression. Recognition. Understanding. Then you know, he said softly, what it's like. The hole it leaves. Yeah, Elena's throat tightened. I do. Leo tugged her sleeve. Will you be my friend? The question was so simple, so pure. It broke something in Elena's chest. Of course, sweetheart, she whispered. Alessandro watched her, and for a moment, Elena saw past the expensive suit and dangerous reputation. She saw a father who'd do anything to see his son happy. A man who understood loss. Be careful, Elena, Alessandro said as she opened the door. Chicago has shadows everywhere. I will, she hesitated. And thank you. Really. She climbed out, Leo waving enthusiastically from the window. As the Mercedes pulled away, Elena stood on the sidewalk, holding her repaired jacket and wondering how her simple life had suddenly become so complicated. Inside the car, Leo yawned. I like her, Daddy. I know. Piccolo. Alessandro watched Elena disappear into her building in the rearview mirror. So do I. Marcus shifted. Sir, that man from earlier, we identified him.
Carlo Vega.
He works for the Russo family. Alessandro's expression went cold. They're watching her. Appears so. Then we watch closer. Alessandro's voice was steel. No one touches her. Understood? Yes, sir. As they drove into the night, Alessandro made a decision. Elena Rossi had stumbled into his world by accident. But now that she was here, now that his son had claimed her as a friend, she was under his protection. Whether she knew it or not. Elena woke to the sound of hammering. She groaned and checked her phone. 7 a.m. Her day off, and someone was making noise in the hallway.
Perfect.
She shuffled to her door in pajamas and squinted through the peephole. Her landlord, Mr. Kowalski, a man who usually ignored maintenance requests for months, stood in the hallway with a toolbox, actually fixing Mrs. Chen's door handle, the one that had been broken since July. Elena opened her door a crack. Mr. Kowalski. He jumped, nearly dropping his screwdriver. Miss Rossi. Good morning.
Elena Blinked.
Mr. Kowalski had never said good morning in his life. He usually grunted and asked where his rent was. Is everything okay? She asked. Yes. Just doing some repairs. Long overdue, you know, he wiped his forehead. Actually, while you're here, your bathroom faucet. The one that drips. I'll fix that today, too.
Elena started.
You will? Of course. Can't have my tenants living with broken fixtures, he smiled, but it looked painful, like his face wasn't used to the expression. I'll stop by this afternoon. He scurried away before Elena could respond. Strange. By noon, Elena's faucet was fixed. So was the loose floorboard near her kitchen. And the window that wouldn't close properly. Mr. Kowalski worked with unusual enthusiasm, whistling off-key while he repaired 3 months' worth of ignored problems in 2 hours. All set, he announced, packing his tools. Oh, and Miss Rossi? About the rent. Don't worry about being a few days late. Pay whenever you can. Elena's mouth fell open. I'm sorry, what?
No ruse.
You're a good tenant.
Quiet.
Respectful. He practically ran for the door. Have a nice day. The door closed, leaving Elena standing in her suddenly functional apartment, completely bewildered. What the hell was happening? That evening, Elena walked to the corner store for groceries. She had $40 to last until Friday, enough for rice, beans, eggs, and maybe some fruit if she was careful. The route took her past the usual characters. The teenagers who hung out by the liquor store, smoking and catcalling anyone in a skirt. They'd hassled Elena a dozen times. She'd learned to walk fast and keep her eyes down. But today, they weren't there. The corner where they usually congregated was empty. Clean, even. Someone had swept up the cigarette butts and broken glass.
Elena slowed, confused.
In 3 years of living here, that corner had never been empty at this time of night. At the store, she grabbed her usual items, mentally calculating prices. At the register, she handed over her cash and waited for the total. $32.50, the cashier said. Elena frowned at her basket. That couldn't be right. These groceries should cost at least $40. Are you sure? The cashier shrugged. That's what it says. Elena didn't argue. Maybe they'd put something on sale. As she walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The streets felt different. Safer. She passed 2 police cars on patrol, unusual for this neighborhood where cops rarely bothered unless someone called them. A man in a dark coat stood across the street, smoking. Elena glanced at him, and he immediately looked away, pulling out his phone. Another man sat in a parked car, pretending to read a newspaper. At 9 p.m., her heart started beating faster. Was someone following her? She picked up her pace, groceries clutched tight. Her building came into view, and she practically ran the last few yards, fumbling with her keys. Inside, she locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. You're being paranoid, she told herself. Nobody's watching you. But the feeling didn't go away. The next morning, Elena found an envelope slipped under her door. No name, no return address. Inside was a receipt from Chicago Electric Company. Her overdue bill, $237, marked paid in full. Elena's hands shook as she read it again. And again. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. She checked her bank account on her phone.
No withdrawal.
The money hadn't come from her. Someone else had paid it. Her mind raced through possibilities. Her coworkers? No, they were all broke too. The diner owner? He barely paid minimum wage. Mr. Kowalski? The man who'd threatened to evict her 2 weeks ago. And then she remembered.
Dark eyes.
A business card. If you ever need anything.
No, Elena whispered. No, no, no.
She dug through her wallet and pulled out Alessandro's card. The cream-colored paper felt heavy in her hand. Accusatory. Had he done this? All of it. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Hello. Miss Rossi. Alessandro's smooth voice filled her ear. I hope I'm not calling too early. Elena's free hand clenched into a fist. Did you pay my electric bill? A pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Her voice shook with anger and something else she couldn't name. My landlord suddenly fixes everything. Suspicious people disappear from my street. My bill gets paid. That's not coincidence. Another pause, longer this time. Would it be so terrible if someone wanted to help you? I told you I don't want your money. It's not about money, Elena, his voice was maddeningly calm. It's about safety. Chicago is dangerous. For you. It's dangerous for you and your world. I was fine before I met you. The words came out harsher than she intended, but she couldn't stop them. I don't need protection. I don't need fixing. I was handling my life. Were you? Alessandro's tone sharpened. You were 2 months behind on utilities. 1 month behind on rent. Walking through dangerous neighborhoods at night. Elena, I've seen your life. You're not handling it, you're drowning. The words hit like a slap because they were true. But hearing him say it, hearing the pity in his voice, made her want to scream. That's my life to drown in, she said quietly. Not yours to fix. Silence stretched between them. Elena could hear him breathing. I can't undo what's been done, Alessandro said finally. But I won't apologize for keeping you safe. I never asked to be kept.
No.
But my son asked me to keep his friend from being hurt. And I don't break promises to my son, his voice softened. Elena, whether you like it or not, You're part of our lives now. That means you're under my protection. I don't abandon people who've helped my family. This isn't protection, Elena said, tears stinging her eyes. This is control. Call it whatever you want. But the protection stays, he paused. Leo would like to visit you at the diner again tomorrow. If that's all right. Elena closed her eyes. She wanted to say no. Wanted to cut all ties with this dangerous, complicated man and his world. But then she thought of Leo's smile. His small hand in hers. The way he'd said, "Will you be my friend?" "Fine," she whispered. "But this conversation isn't over." "I wouldn't expect it to be." She could hear the smile in his voice.
Got it, huh?
He hung up, leaving Elena standing in her fixed apartment, holding a paid bill, and wondering how her life had spun so completely out of her control in less than a week. Outside, in a car down the street, Marcus lowered his phone. "She knows." Vincent, beside him, whistled low. "Boss isn't gonna like that." Boss expected it. Marcus watched Elena's window. She's smart. It was only a matter of time. Think she'll push back. Marcus remembered the fire in Elena's voice, the way she'd stood up to Alessandro without flinching. Absolutely. Good, Vincent said. Boss needs someone who's not afraid of him. Marcus smiled grimly.
Yeah.
He does. The Blue Moon Bar sat in the industrial district, the kind of place where questions weren't asked and security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. In the back room, wreathed in cigar smoke, 5 men sat around a poker table that hadn't seen an honest game in 20 years. Dominic Russo, head of Chicago's second-largest crime family, studied his cards with the same cold calculation he applied to everything. Across from him, his lieutenant Carlo Vega shifted uncomfortably. "You got something to say, Carlo?" Dominic asked without looking up. "It's about Moretti." The other men at the table went still. Dominic set down his cards slowly. "I'm listening. He's been moving resources. Personal protection detail, surveillance equipment. Running background checks through his people at the courthouse." Carlo leaned forward. "All focused on one person." "Who?" "A waitress. 26, nobody special. Works at a diner on South Clark. Elena Rossi." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Moretti doesn't waste resources on nobodies." "That's what I thought. So I had her followed." Carlo slid a folder across the table. "She's clean. No connections, no family, no money. But 3 days ago, Moretti paid her utility bills. Had her landlord fix her apartment. Stationed men on her street. He's protecting her like she's gold." Dominic opened the folder and studied the surveillance photos. Elena leaving the diner.
Elena Buin Groceries.
Elena smiling at an old man at a bus stop. She looked ordinary, harmless, which meant she was anything but. "A mistress?" one of the other men suggested. "Too much protection for a mistress," Dominic said. "You put a woman in a nice apartment, give her jewelry, keep her quiet. You don't deploy a 6-man security detail." He tapped the photo. "This is different. She means something." "Maybe she knows something," Carlo offered. "Information? Leverage? Or maybe she's bait." Dominic smiled coldly. "Moretti's playing a game, and we need to know the rules." He looked at Carlo. "I want eyes on her 24/7. I want to know everyone she talks to, everywhere she goes. If she sneezes, I want to know what direction the wind was blowing." "Already done, boss. We've got 3 guys rotating surveillance. Make it 6. And Carlo." Dominic's voice dropped to a whisper. "Be discreet. If Moretti catches you watching his pet project, it'll start a war." Carlo nodded and left. The poker game resumed, but Dominic's mind was elsewhere. Alessandro Moretti was the most calculating bastard in Chicago. He didn't make moves without 3 contingencies and an exit strategy. If he was protecting some random waitress, there was a reason. And Dominic intended to find out what it was. Elena wiped down table 6 for the 3rd time, her mind elsewhere. It had been 2 days since her argument with Alessandro, and she couldn't stop thinking about it. The protection hadn't stopped. If anything, it had increased. She'd spotted at least 4 different men watching her building at various times. They were trying to be subtle, but Elena had grown up in Chicago. She knew what surveillance looked like. "You okay, honey?" Cheryl, the older waitress who'd worked at Miller's for 15 years, touched her arm. "You've been distracted all week." "I'm fine," Elena forced a smile. "Just tired." Cheryl didn't look convinced. "Wouldn't have anything to do with that handsome man and his adorable kid who've been coming in every day." Elena's cheeks flushed. "They're just customers." "Customers don't look at you the way he does," Cheryl winked. "And they definitely don't tip $50 on a $20 check." "He what?" "Yesterday. Left a 50, walked out before you could return it." Cheryl squeezed her shoulder. "Whatever's going on, be careful. Man like that comes with complications." "You have no idea," Elena thought. The bell above the door chimed. Elena looked up, and her heart did an unwelcome flip. Alessandro walked in with Leo, both dressed casually, or what passed for casual when your jeans probably cost more than rent. Leo spotted her immediately and ran over, his face glowing. "Elena, we came back." "I see that." Elena crouched down, unable to resist his enthusiasm. "How's my favorite lion?" "I learned a new word.
Daddy taught me. Affettuoso."
"It means affectionate," Elena said softly, her eyes meeting Alessandro's. "It's Italian." "You speak Italian?" Alessandro's surprise was genuine. "A little. My grandmother was from Naples." Elena stood, suddenly aware of every eye in the diner watching them. "Your usual table? Please." She led them to the corner booth, feeling the weight of a dozen curious stares. Alessandro slid in, and Leo bounced beside him, already chattering about his day. "Can I have chocolate chip pancakes?" Leo asked. "It's dinner time," Alessandro said patiently. "But Elena makes the best ones." "She does, doesn't she?" Alessandro looked at Elena, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "We'll have whatever you recommend." Elena took their order, hyper-aware of his gaze following her as she walked away. At the counter, Cheryl smirked. "Just customers, huh? Shut up." Across the street, in a van with tinted windows, two of Dominic's men watched through a camera lens. "The kid's all over her," the first one muttered. "Look at that. He's drawing her a picture." Boss was right. "She's not just some random girl," the second man zoomed in on Alessandro's face. "I've never seen Moretti smile like that. Not in 5 years." "Should we move closer?"
"No."
"Moretti's got at least 3 guys within 50 feet. We get made, and we're dead." He lowered the camera. "But we keep watching. Sooner or later, we'll figure out what makes her so special." Inside the diner, Elena delivered their food and tried to ignore how natural it felt when Leo grabbed her hand and told her about his drawing. It was supposed to be a lion, but it looked more like a deformed cat. "It's perfect," Elena said sincerely. "It's for you. So you remember me when I'm not here." Elena's chest tightened. "I couldn't forget you if I tried, sweetheart." Alessandro watched the exchange in silence, his expression unreadable. When Leo was distracted with his food, he spoke quietly. "You're angry with me?" "Yes." Elena didn't bother denying it. "But you're here." "I'm here for him," she nodded at Leo. "Not you." "I know." Alessandro's voice was soft. "But I'll take it." Elena met his gaze and saw something there she hadn't expected. Vulnerability. Like he was afraid she'd disappear and take Leo's happiness with her. "He's lucky to have you," she said despite herself. "I'm the lucky one." Alessandro glanced at his son. After Maria died, he stopped talking. Stopped smiling. The doctors said it was trauma. That he'd come back to us when he was ready. His eyes found hers again. "You brought him back in one rainy evening." "So yes, Elena. I'll protect you. I'll pay your bills. I'll station men on your street. Because you gave me my son back, and that's a debt I can never repay." Elena's anger crumbled. How could she stay mad at that? "You could just say thank you," she whispered. "Instead of trying to control my life. Would you have accepted it?" "No." "Then we're both stubborn." A slight smile. "We'll learn to work around it." Elena wanted to argue, but Leo tugged her sleeve, asking her to sit with them while they ate. She glanced at her other tables, all occupied but not needing immediate attention, and slid into the booth. Just for a minute, she told herself. But the minutes stretched into 20, filled with Leo's laughter and Alessandro's quiet presence, and Elena realized with growing alarm that she was starting to feel comfortable in this dangerous new world. Outside, hidden eyes watched and calculated. And in the shadows, plans were already forming. By the end of the week, Alessandro and Leo had become fixtures at Miller's diner. Monday lunch. Leo ordered grilled cheese, cut into triangles the way his mother used to make it. He told Elena about his piano lesson and made her promise to hear him play someday. Tuesday dinner. Leo brought a book and asked Elena to read to him during her break. Alessandro sat across from them, pretending to check his phone but watching every interaction. Wednesday afternoon, Leo insisted on sitting at the counter so he could help Elena work. He folded napkins, badly, and made her laugh until her sides hurt. The pattern was obvious. The staff noticed. "Table 9 wants you again," Cheryl said Thursday morning, her eyebrows raised meaningfully. "Your fan club's here." Elena looked over. Alessandro sat in his usual spot, Leo already waving enthusiastically. Her stomach did that annoying flip thing it had been doing lately. "They're just... If you say, just customers one more time, I'm gonna smack you with a menu." Cheryl pushed her toward the table. "Girl, that man watches you like you're the only person in the room. And he tips like a millionaire." "Maybe he is one," Elena muttered. "Then you better be nice to him." Elena grabbed her notepad and headed over. Leo bounced in his seat. "Elena, guess what? Daddy said we can come every day if I finish my homework." "Every day." Elena glanced at Alessandro. "Don't you have work?" "I make my own schedule." His dark eyes held hers. "And Leo's happiness is work enough." The simple statement shouldn't have warmed her as much as it did. "Well then," Elena pulled out her pen. "What can I get you gentlemen today?" Over the next hour, she checked on them between orders. Leo told her about his pet turtle. Alessandro asked about her day with genuine interest. It felt dangerously close to normal, like they were friends. Or something more. Tommy, the cook, leaned through the kitchen window. "Your boyfriend's here again." "He's not my boyfriend," Elena hissed. "Sure, honey. And I'm not 50 pounds overweight," Tommy grinned. "Man like that doesn't come to a place like this for the food." Elena's cheeks burned. She busied herself refilling coffee for table 3, trying to ignore the knowing looks from her coworkers. Friday evening brought rain, the soft kind that made everything feel quiet and intimate. The diner was half empty, most people choosing to stay home. Alessandro and Leo arrived at 6, soaked from the short walk from their car. "We couldn't stay away," Alessandro said, raindrops glistening in his dark hair. "Someone insisted the rain reminded him of the night we met." Leo grabbed Elena's hand. "It's good rain now. Not scary rain." Elena's heart squeezed. She grabbed towels from behind the counter and helped dry Leo's hair. Alessandro watched with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You're good with him," he said softly. "He's easy to be good with." Elena handed Alessandro a towel. "He's a great kid."
He is.
"But most people don't see past the bodyguards and the money." Alessandro dried his face. "You treat him like he's just Leo." "Because he is just Leo," Elena met his gaze. "The rest doesn't matter." Something shifted in Alessandro's expression, surprise mixed with something deeper. "You really believe that?" "Of course I do." The diner door chimed. Elena glanced up and felt her blood run cold. 3 men in leather jackets stood in the entrance, water dripping onto the worn linoleum. They weren't her usual customers. These men had hard eyes and harder smiles. One of them stared directly at her, then at Alessandro. Marcus appeared from nowhere, suddenly standing beside their booth. His hand rested inside his jacket. "Boss," he said quietly. Alessandro's entire demeanor changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "I see them. What's happening?"
Elena whispered.
"Go to the kitchen." Alessandro's voice was steel.
"Now."
But Elena, he looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her move. Please. She grabbed Leo's hand. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go see if Tommy has cookies. Leo sensed the tension. He clung to her as she led him through the kitchen door. Tommy took one look at her face and stepped in front of them both. Through the window, Elena watched the three men approach Alessandro's booth. They spoke. She couldn't hear what, but Alessandro's expression never changed. After a tense minute, the men left. Alessandro stood, adjusted his jacket, and walked to the kitchen. His face was calm, but his eyes were furious. We're leaving, he told Leo gently. Something came up, but I didn't finish my cocoa. We'll come back tomorrow. Alessandro lifted his son into his arms. He looked at Elena.
I'm sorry.
This won't happen again. Who were they? Elena asked, even though part of her didn't want to know. Nobody important, but the lie was obvious. Marcus appeared with the car keys. Clear path to the vehicle. Vincent's already started the engine. They left quickly, professionally, like a military extraction. Elena stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding, finally understanding what she'd been avoiding. This wasn't just a powerful man being grateful. This was something bigger, darker, and she was already too deep to walk away unscathed. You okay?
Tommy asked.
No. Elena sank into a chair. I don't think I am. That night, Cheryl cornered her in the break room. Elena, honey, I've lived in Chicago my whole life. The older woman's voice was serious. And I know danger when I see it. Those men today. I know. Do you? Cheryl gripped her shoulders. Because that little boy is precious, and his father clearly cares about you. But men like that, they live in a different world. A violent world. And if you're not careful, you'll get caught in the crossfire. Elena thought about Leo's smile. Alessandro's rare vulnerability. The way she felt safe around them despite everything. What if I'm already caught? She whispered. Cheryl's expression softened with sadness. Then you better learn to swim in deep water fast. Because those men today, they weren't there for the coffee. Elena went home that night with Cheryl's words echoing in her head. She unlocked her apartment and froze. An envelope sat on her kitchen table.
Thick.
Expensive. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a note in elegant handwriting. I'm sorry for today. You deserve better than to be frightened in your workplace.
A.
Beneath it was a check. $20,000. Elena stared at it until the numbers blurred. This wasn't protection anymore. This was hush money. Payment to stay quiet about whatever she'd seen. Or maybe it was something else entirely. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on Alessandro's card. He answered on the first ring. Elena. I can't keep doing this, she said, her voice breaking. Every time I turn around, your world is crashing into mine. My coworkers are scared. Strange men are showing up. And now you're leaving me checks like I'm... Like you're what? His voice was sharp. Like I'm someone you need to pay to stay quiet. Silence. Then softer. That check is because you had to see violence today. Because my world touched yours and left you shaken. Not to keep you quiet. Never that. Then what do you want from me? Elena's tears finally spilled over. Why won't you just leave me alone? Because I can't. Alessandro's voice was raw, more honest than she'd ever heard it. Because my son asks about you every morning. Because you make him laugh again. And because when I look at you, I see something I thought I'd lost forever. What? Hope. The word hung between them. You make me believe good people still exist. That kindness isn't just a weakness to be exploited. And I'm selfish enough that I won't give that up. Even if I should. Elena closed her eyes, clutching the phone. This is going to end badly. I know. He paused. But I'm asking you to trust me anyway. She should say no. Should hang up, tear up the check, and never look back. Instead, she whispered, Okay. Okay. I trust you and God help her. She meant it. The next morning, Elena discovered her building had transformed overnight. The lobby, usually grimy and smelling of mildew, had been cleaned. Actually cleaned. The cracked mirror had been replaced. The burnt-out light fixtures now worked. Even the ancient mailboxes had been polished. Mr. Kowalski stood in the entrance, practically vibrating with nervous energy. Miss Rossi. Good morning. He rushed over, wringing his hands. I hope the building improvements meet your satisfaction. Elena stared at him. Mr. Kowalski, what's going on? Just making sure our tenants are comfortable. His smile looked painful. If you need anything at all, you let me know immediately. Day or night. I'm at your service. He practically bowed before scurrying away. Mrs. Chun from 3B watched from her doorway, her eyes suspicious. That man hasn't cleaned this building in 10 years. Now suddenly he's Mr. Fix-It. She looked at Elena. What did you do, girl? I didn't do anything. Alma, Mrs. Chen's gaze sharpened. Those expensive cars that keep parking outside? The men in suits watching our building? That has something to do with you, doesn't it? Elena's stomach dropped. What men? Don't play stupid. I'm 73, not blind. Mrs. Chen stepped closer, lowering her voice. I've lived in Chicago my whole life. I know what protection looks like. And I know what kind of men provide it. She touched Elena's arm, her expression softening. Be careful, child. That world doesn't let people go once it has them. She shuffled back into her apartment, leaving Elena standing in the newly cleaned hallway, feeling like the walls were closing in. At the diner, things got worse. Elena was taking an order when she noticed him, a man with a camera sitting in a car across the street. Not hiding it. Not pretending to be subtle. Just sitting there, lens pointed directly at the diner entrance. You see that guy? Tommy muttered, nodding toward the window. He's been there since we opened. 4th day in a row. Maybe he's not just anything. Tommy's expression was grim. Yesterday, 2 other guys were taking pictures. This morning, I saw someone filming on their phone. Elena, what the hell is going on? Before she could answer, Cheryl grabbed her arm. Customers at Table 9 are asking about that rich guy and his kid. Table 6 wants to know if you're dating a mobster. And Table 3, she pointed to a woman openly taking a picture of Elena with her phone. Just posted your photo on Facebook with some theory about you being a mafia mistress. Elena felt her world tilting. This is insane. This is your life now. Cheryl's voice was gentle but firm. Whatever you've gotten yourself into, it's public knowledge. And, honey, people talk. Elena glanced out the window again. The photographer was still there. But now she noticed others. A man pretending to read a newspaper on a bench, another standing by the coffee shop, talking into his collar like he had a wire. How many were watching her? And which ones were Alessandro's men versus someone else's? At 3 p.m., the diner door opened. Not Alessandro and Leo this time. Marcus entered, his expression grave. He scanned the room, then walked directly to Elena. We need to talk. Outside. Elena's heart hammered. I'm working. It's important. His tone left no room for argument. She told Cheryl she was taking her break and followed Marcus out the back entrance into the alley. 2 more of Alessandro's men stood guard at either end. What's happening? Elena demanded. We intercepted 2 men from the Russo family this morning. They were setting up long-range surveillance equipment aimed at your apartment. Marcus's jaw was tight. They know where you live, where you work, what route you take between them. They've been tracking you for days. Elena's legs felt weak.
Why?
I'm nobody. You're connected to Alessandro. That makes you valuable. Marcus stepped closer. Miss Rossi, we need to move you. Tonight. Somewhere safe. Move me? Elena's voice rose. I have a job, a life. Which won't matter if you're dead. Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. The Russos think you mean something to Alessandro. And they're right. Which means they'll use you to get to him. Or worse, to hurt Leo. The mention of Leo made Elena's blood run cold. They'd hurt a child. They'd hurt anyone if it served their purpose. Marcus softened slightly. I have orders to keep you safe. That means getting you out of the line of fire. I need to think. There's no time. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Mr. Moretti. He'll explain. Before Elena could protest, he was dialing. He handed her the phone. Elena, Alessandro's voice was steady but urgent. Marcus told you that I'm being watched by criminals? Yes, he mentioned it. Then you understand why you need to leave your apartment. No, Elena's voice shook. I understand that your world is destroying mine. I understand that people are taking my picture, and my neighbors think I'm some kind of gangster's girlfriend. I understand that I can't walk to work without wondering if someone's following me. I know Alessandro's voice was pained. And I'm sorry. But I won't apologize for keeping you alive. Maybe I don't want to be kept. The words burst out before she could stop them. Maybe I want my normal, boring, broke life back. Silence. Then, I can't give you that. Why not? Because Leo needs you. Because you've become important to us. And because he stopped, and Elena heard him take a breath. Because the thought of something happening to you makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. Things I thought died with Maria. Elena's anger crumbled. Alessandro, let Marcus take you somewhere safe.
Please.
Just for a few days until we handle the Russo situation. I can't just abandon my job. I'll handle it. I'll pay your wages.
I'll.
Stop trying to fix everything with money. Elena's frustration peaked. I'm not your responsibility. Yes, you are. His voice was absolute. The moment you helped my son, you became my responsibility. That's how my world works. You protect what's yours. I'm not yours. Another pause, heavy with unspoken things. Not yet. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning Elena wasn't ready to unpack. I need to get back to work, she whispered. Elena. She handed the phone back to Marcus and walked inside, her mind reeling. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Elena served customers on autopilot, hyper-aware of every person watching her. The photographer across the street. The woman at table 6 who kept staring. The 2 men who came in, ordered nothing, and left after 10 minutes of watching her work. When her shift ended at 8, Marcus was waiting by the back door. I'm walking you home. Elena didn't argue. She was too tired, too overwhelmed. They walked in silence, Marcus a solid presence beside her. Other men, Alessandro's men, formed a loose perimeter around them. Protection that felt more like a cage. At her building, Mrs. Chen stood outside, arms crossed. Those men were back today, she told Elena. Different ones. They asked about you. When you come home, when you leave, if you have visitors, her eyes were worried. I told them nothing. But Elena, this is getting dangerous. For all of us. Guilt crashed over Elena. Her neighbors were being questioned because of her. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Mrs. Chen squeezed her hand. Whatever you're involved in, make sure it's worth the price. Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment, Marcus following. Inside, he checked every room, every window. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Mr. Moretti. He handed her a new phone. This is a secure line. Mr. Moretti's number is programmed. If anything feels wrong, you call immediately. How long will this last? Elena asked quietly. Marcus's expression was sympathetic. As long as you're important to Alessandro, you'll be a target. That's the reality. I'm sorry. He left, and Elena locked the door behind him. She stood in her small apartment, fixed up, cleaned, safe, and felt like a prisoner in a gilded cage. Her old phone buzzed. Text messages from coworkers, from acquaintances she hadn't talked to in months. Everyone wanting to know about that rich guy and those mobsters and what's really going on. Elena turned off her phone and curled up on her futon. She'd made her choice. She'd said she trusted Alessandro. But trust didn't make the fear disappear. And somewhere in Chicago's shadows, rival eyes were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The afternoon shift started like any other. Elena tied her apron, checked her tables, and tried to ignore the persistent feeling of being watched. At 2 p.m., Alessandro and Leo arrived. The routine had become comfortable. Leo's excited wave, Alessandro's subtle nod, Marcus taking position near the door, while Vincent watched from outside. Elena! Leo bounded over, clutching a drawing. Look, I made you another picture. It was a stick figure with wild hair holding hands with a smaller stick figure. That's you and me, Leo explained proudly. Best friends. Elena's heart melted. It's perfect. I'll put it on my fridge. Promise. Promise. Alessandro watched them with that expression he got sometimes, soft around the edges, like seeing them together healed something broken inside him. The usual? Elena asked. Please, Alessandro's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. I need to take this. Leo, stay with Marcus. But Daddy. 5 minutes. Alessandro kissed his son's head and stepped outside, phone pressed to his ear. Elena brought Leo crayons and a coloring sheet. He settled into the booth, humming while he drew. Marcus stood nearby, alert but relaxed. Everything was normal. Until it wasn't. The black van screeched to a stop outside the diner. Elena glanced up, her heart already kicking into overdrive. 4 men jumped out, moving fast. Too fast. Not bothering with subtlety. Marcus saw them a split second before they reached the door. Get down. The diner erupted in chaos. The men burst through the entrance, one pulling a gun. Customers screamed. Chairs scraped as people dove for cover. The kid, one man shouted. Get the kid. Elena's body moved before her brain caught up. She lunged for Leo, wrapping herself around him as he started to scream. Kitchen. Marcus roared, drawing his own weapon. Elena, go. Elena didn't think. She grabbed Leo and ran, his small body clutching her neck, his terrified sobs vibrating against her shoulder. It's okay, she gasped, even though nothing was okay. Behind her, gunshots cracked like thunder. Glass shattered. People were screaming. Elena burst through the kitchen door, Tommy's shocked face blurring past. She didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Back door. Tommy yelled, pointing. Elena ran, her lungs burning, Leo's weight making her arms shake. She hit the back door with her shoulder, stumbled into the alley, and slammed it shut behind them. Her hands fumbled with the lock, the deadbolt, the chain. Elena, I'm scared. Leo sobbed into her neck. I know, baby. I know. She set him down behind a dumpster, her body between him and the door. Listen to me. You stay here. You stay quiet.
Can you do that?
Leo nodded, tears streaming down his face. The back door handle rattled violently. Someone was trying to get through. Elena looked around frantically. No weapon. Nothing but trash bags and broken pallets. She grabbed a discarded metal pipe, gripping it with shaking hands. If they came through that door, she'd fight. She'd die before she let them touch Leo. The door shuddered under heavy impacts. They were kicking it. Stay back, Elena whispered to Leo, raising the pipe. Then voices from the other side. Different voices. FBI. Drop your weapons.
No.
Not FBI. Vincent, status. That was Marcus. 3 down, 1 fleeing east. The door burst open. Elena swung the pipe, but Marcus caught it mid-swing. It's me. It's me. He held up his free hand. You're safe. We got them. Elena's legs gave out. She dropped the pipe and fell to her knees, gasping for air. Leo ran to her, and she wrapped him in her arms, both of them shaking violently. You're okay, she whispered into his hair. You're okay, you're okay. Alessandro appeared in the doorway, and Elena had never seen such raw fear on anyone's face. He looked at Leo, at Elena holding him, and something cracked in his expression. Leo, his voice broke.
Figlio mio.
Leo released Elena and ran to his father. Alessandro caught him, crushing him against his chest, his eyes squeezed shut. Daddy, Elena saved me, Leo cried. The bad men came, but Elena saved me. Alessandro's eyes opened and locked onto Elena's. The intensity there stole her breath, gratitude, fear, something deeper she couldn't name. "Are you hurt?" he asked her, his voice rough. Elena shook her head, unable to speak. Marcus appeared with a tablet. "Boss, you need to see this. Security footage." Alessandro reluctantly set Leo down, keeping one hand on his son's shoulder. Marcus angled the tablet so they could both see. The footage showed everything.
The van.
The armed men, Marcus engaging them, and Elena grabbing Leo, shielding him with her own body, running. The way she'd positioned herself between him and the door in the alley. The pipe raised, ready to fight men with guns despite having no chance of winning. Alessandro watched in silence, his jaw clenched so tight Elena could see the muscle jumping. "She didn't hesitate," Marcus said quietly. "Not for a second." Alessandro handed back the tablet. He walked to Elena, who was still on her knees in the dirty alley. He crouched in front of her, his face inches from hers. "You could have died," he said hoarsely. "So could he." Elena's voice was steady despite her shaking hands. "I wasn't going to let them take him."
Why?
Alessandro's eyes searched hers desperately. "Why would you risk your life for him?" "Because I love him." The words came out simple.
True.
"Because he's just a little boy who's already lost too much. Because someone had to." Alessandro stared at her like she'd spoken a language he'd forgotten existed. Then he did something that shocked everyone present. He reached out and cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs gentle against her cheeks. "You protected my son twice now," he whispered. "Do you understand what that means to me? What you mean to me?" Elena couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
Could only feel the warmth of his hands and the weight of his gaze. "You're coming home with us," Alessandro said, and it wasn't a request.
Tonight.
"I won't risk your life again. You're under my protection permanently, and that means you're under my roof." "Alessandro." "This isn't a negotiation, Elena." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You saved my son.
Twice.
That makes you family. And I protect my family with everything I have." Leo grabbed her hand. "Please come home with us? Please." Elena looked at the little boy she'd grown to love, then at his father, who'd somehow worked his way past all her defenses. The choice had already been made the moment she'd wrapped herself around Leo and run. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Alessandro's eyes closed briefly, relief flooding his features. When he opened them again, they held a promise. She was his now. To protect, to cherish, to keep safe. And God help anyone who tried to hurt her again. In his office across town, Dominic Russo watched his own footage of the ambush on a laptop screen. 4 of his men arrested or dead. The target, Leo Moretti, unharmed. And the waitress. That nobody from nowhere who'd fought like a lioness to protect a child that wasn't even hers. "Interesting," Dominic murmured. "Very interesting indeed." He closed the laptop, a cold smile spreading across his face. The game had just become much more complicated. And much more fun. The estate was nothing like Elena had imagined. Gates that required 3 security checks. A driveway that curved through manicured gardens. A mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie, all stone and glass and wealth that made her want to disappear. Leo had fallen asleep against her shoulder during the drive, exhausted from fear and adrenaline. Elena held him carefully as Alessandro carried him inside, Marcus and Vincent flanking them like silent sentinels. "This way," Alessandro said softly, leading her up a grand staircase. Leo's room was fit for a prince. Airplane models hung from the ceiling. Bookshelves lined the walls. A bed shaped like a race car sat in the center, covered in soft blankets. Alessandro laid his son down gently, removing his shoes. Leo stirred, reaching for Elena even in sleep. "Stay," he mumbled. "Don't go." Elena's throat tightened. She squeezed his hand. "I'm right here, sweetheart." Alessandro watched them, his expression unreadable. After Leo settled back into sleep, he gestured toward the door. "We should talk." They walked in silence, through hallways that felt endless. Paintings that probably cost more than her entire life hung on walls. Everything was pristine, expensive, untouchable. Elena had never felt more out of place. Alessandro led her to a study, all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Whiskey," he said, offering her one. "You look like you need it." Elena took it with shaking hands and drank. The burn felt good.
Real.
"Sit." Alessandro gestured to a leather couch. "Please." She sat. He settled into the chair across from her, studying her face in the low light. "You're in shock," he observed. "I watched men with guns try to kidnap a child today." Elena's voice was hollow. "Your child. And I'm sitting in a mansion that could house 50 families. So yes, I'm in shock." Alessandro set down his glass. "I'm going to be direct with you, Elena. No games. No manipulation. Just truth." She nodded, unable to speak. "You protected my son twice. Once at a bus stop when you had nothing to give. Once today, when you risked your life." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That's not something I ignore. In my world, debts like that are sacred. I don't want your money." "I'm not offering money." His dark eyes held hers. "I'm offering you a place. Here."
Permanently.
Elena's heart hammered. "What?" "Leo needs you. He's attached to you in a way he hasn't been with anyone since Maria died. You make him feel safe."
Happy.
"And after today," Alessandro's voice roughened, "after watching you shield him without hesitation, I know he's safer with you than with anyone else I could hire." "You want me to be his nanny?" "Not a nanny. A companion. A guardian." "Family." Alessandro stood, moving to the window. "Your life as you knew it is over, Elena. The Russos know your face. So do 6 other families who'd use you to get to me. You can't go back to your apartment.
Your job.
Your normal life. It's gone." The words hit like physical blows. Elena set down her glass before she dropped it. "So, what are you saying?" she whispered. Alessandro turned to face her. "I'm saying you stay here, under my protection. You'll have your own suite, staff at your disposal, anything you need. In return, you spend time with Leo, help him with homework, read him stories, be the person he runs to when he's scared. That's it? Just be with Leo? That's everything." Alessandro's expression softened. "You've already been doing it. I'm just asking you to continue. In safety. Where the Russos can't touch you." Elena stood on unsteady legs. "And what about my life? My choices? Do I just become another thing you own?" "No." Alessandro crossed to her in 3 strides. "You're not a possession, Elena. He stopped, searching for words. "You're important.
To Leo. To me.
And I won't let you be hurt because of us." "I'm not yours to protect," Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Aren't you?" Alessandro's gaze was intense. "You love my son. You admitted it today. And whether you'll admit it or not, you've already chosen us over your old life. You came here willingly. Because there were men with guns. Because you couldn't bear the thought of leaving Leo." Alessandro's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Just like I can't bear the thought of you in danger. So here we are." Elena wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy in her chest.
He was right.
Somewhere between the rainy bus stop and today's chaos, she'd stopped being just a waitress who helped a lost boy. She'd become part of their lives. And they'd become part of hers. "What if I say no?" she asked quietly. "What if I want to try to go back?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Then I'll put you in a safe house with 24-hour security. I'll pay for everything you need. I'll make sure you're protected." He paused. "But Leo will be devastated. And you'll never see him again, because I won't risk him getting attached to someone who'll leave." The words were brutal in their honesty.
But fair.
She'd known Alessandro long enough to understand. He protected what was his with absolute ruthlessness, even if it meant keeping people apart. "That's manipulative," Elena said. "That's parenthood." Alessandro's expression was pained. "My son has lost enough. I won't let him lose someone else he loves unless there's no other choice. Elena walked to the window, staring at Chicago's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there was her tiny apartment, her job at the diner, her struggling, lonely, ordinary life. A life she'd been miserable in if she was honest. And here was Alessandro, offering her safety,
Purpose.
a child who loved her. A life that terrified and tempted her in equal measure. What happens when Leo grows up? She asked. When he doesn't need me anymore? Then you stay anyway. Alessandro's voice was closer now. He'd moved behind her, near enough that she could feel his warmth. Because by then you'll be family. And family doesn't leave. Elena closed her eyes. Your world is violent. Dangerous. Yes. People will always be trying to hurt the ones you care about. Yes. Including me if I stay. Yes. Alessandro's hand touched her shoulder, gentle. But I'm very good at protecting what's mine, Elena. And I promise you, I will keep you safe. Elena turned to face him. In the low light, with his guard down, Alessandro looked less like a dangerous crime lord and more like a man who'd lost too much and couldn't bear to lose anything else. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. His honesty stunned her. Scared of failing you. Of failing Leo. Of being selfish by asking you to accept this life. His hand moved from her shoulder to cup her cheek, the gesture achingly tender. But I'm asking anyway.
Stay.
Please. Elena thought of Leo's arms around her neck. His whispered, don't go, the way he called her his best friend. She thought of Alessandro's rare smiles. The way he looked at her like she was something precious. The safety she felt despite the danger, simply because he decided she mattered. And she thought of her empty apartment, her aching feet, her lonely nights eating ramen and wondering if this was all life would ever be. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Alessandro's relief was visible, his shoulders dropping, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them again, they shone with something that looked dangerously like hope. Thank you, he said hoarsely. But I have conditions. His lips quirked. Of course you do. I'm not a prisoner. I can leave the estate. I can have friends. I can have my own life. With security. But yes. And you don't pay me like an employee. If I'm family, then I'm family. Not staff. Alessandro's smile widened. Agreed. And Elena took a breath. You're honest with me. About your work. About the dangers. I won't be kept in the dark. Alessandro studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. That's fair. And brave. Or stupid. Perhaps both. He offered his hand. Do we have an agreement? Elena looked at his outstretched hand. This was it. The moment everything changed forever.
She took his hand.
His fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. We have an agreement, she said. And just like that, Elena Rossi, struggling waitress from Chicago's South Side, became part of Alessandro Moretti's family. For better or worse. Elena didn't sleep. The guest suite Alessandro had given her was larger than her entire apartment. A king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A bathroom with heated floors and a shower big enough for 3 people. Windows overlooking gardens lit by subtle landscape lighting. It was beautiful. Surreal.
Terrifying.
She sat on the edge of the bed in borrowed pajamas, soft cotton that smelled like expensive detergent, and stared at her reflection in the full-length mirror across the room. Who was she now? Not the struggling waitress counting tips. Not the girl who dropped out of college to care for her dying mother. Not the woman who ate ramen 4 nights a week and wore secondhand clothes. This Elena had agreed to live in a mansion. To be part of a crime lord's family. To raise a child who wasn't hers, but somehow felt like he was. Her phone, the old one, not the secure one Alessandro had given her, sat on the nightstand. 23 unread messages. Cheryl asking if she was okay. Tommy wondering if she'd been hurt. Mr. Peterson from the diner, hoping she'd survived. Whatever the hell happened. Her old life, reaching out. Worried. waiting. Elena picked up the phone and typed carefully. I'm safe. I'm sorry I can't explain everything, but I need to leave Chicago for a while. Thank you for being kind to me. Elena. She sent it to everyone who'd messaged, and then, after a long moment of hesitation, she turned off the phone. The old Elena was gone. Time to learn how to be the new one. Morning came too quickly. Elena had finally dozed off around 5 a.m., only to wake at 7 to soft knocking. Miss Rossi. A woman's voice, accented and professional. Mr. Moretti asked me to check if you needed anything. Elena opened the door to find a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray hair pulled into a neat bun. I'm Rosa, she said with a warm smile. Head housekeeper. Though honestly, that's a fancy way of saying I make sure this place doesn't fall apart. She held out a tray with coffee, fruit, and pastries. I thought you might be hungry. Thank you. Elena took the tray, feeling awkward. You didn't have to. Mr. Moretti was very clear. You're not a guest. You're family, which means I'm here to help, not to serve. Rosa's eyes twinkled. Though between you and me, I've worked for this family for 15 years. It's nice to see someone good finally walk through these doors. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Rosa stepped back. Mr. Moretti is handling some business this morning, but he left instructions. Marcus will take you to your apartment to collect your things. You're to take whatever you want. Reality crashed down. This was really happening. When? Elena asked. Whenever you're ready. An hour later, Elena stood outside her apartment building for what felt like the last time. Marcus and Vincent flanked her. Two other men she didn't recognize waited by a black SUV. Mr. Kowalski appeared in the lobby entrance, wringing his hands. Miss Rossi, I heard about the incident at the diner. Are you all right? I'm fine. Elena managed to smile. I'm actually moving out today. I know I have a week left on rent. Already handled. Mr. Kowalski's nervousness was palpable. Mr. Moretti's people contacted me this morning. Paid through the end of the lease. Even paid for damages to the unit, though there aren't any. He paused. You're a good tenant, Miss Rossi. I'm sorry to see you go. Because you're terrified of what Alessandro will do if I'm not happy, Elena thought but didn't say. Thank you, Mr. Kowalski. Upstairs, her apartment looked smaller than she remembered.
Sadder.
The few belongings she'd accumulated over the years seemed pathetic in the morning light. Take your time, Marcus said quietly, standing by the door. We're in no rush. Elena moved through the space mechanically. Clothes into a suitcase. Books into a box. Her mother's wedding ring, always around her neck, but she grabbed the small jewelry box that held her mother's other pieces. Photos from college, before everything fell apart. Her father's old watch that didn't work anymore. Everything she owned fit into 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. 3 years of her life, packed in under an hour. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, breathing hard from the stairs. I heard you were leaving. Mrs. Chen. Don't. The old woman held up a hand. I know what I know. And I know you're doing what you have to do. She pressed something into Elena's hand.
A small jade Buddha on a chain.
My mother gave this to me when I came to America. For protection. For luck. Her eyes were wet. You're going to need both, child. Elena's throat closed. She hugged Mrs. Chen tightly. Thank you. For everything. You be smart. You be careful. And you remember, you're stronger than you think. Mrs. Chen pulled back, cupping Elena's face. Your mother would be proud. You saved a child. That matters more than anything. After Mrs. Chen left, Elena took one last look around. The leaky faucet Alessandro had fixed. The window that finally closed properly. The tiny kitchen where she'd eaten 1,000 lonely meals. Goodbye, she whispered. Back at the estate, Rosa showed Elena to her permanent suite. Not a guest room, her room. It was stunning. Cream walls with soft gray accents. A sitting area with a fireplace. Bookshelves waiting to be filled. French doors that opened onto a private balcony overlooking the gardens. Mr. Moretti had it prepared last night, Rosa explained. He wanted you to feel welcome. If there's anything you'd like to change. It's perfect, Elena breathed.
And it was.
Too perfect. Like stepping into someone else's life. The staff has been instructed, Rosa continued. You're to be treated with the same respect as Mr. Moretti himself. If anyone gives you trouble, you come directly to me or to Alessandro. I'm not used to this, Elena admitted. People helping me, treating me like I matter. Rosa's expression softened. You saved Leo's life.
Twice.
In this house, that makes you sacred, she patted Elena's hand. Now, let me show you where everything is. Leo will be home from his tutor in an hour, and he's been asking about you every 5 minutes. As Rosa talked Elena through the suite, the closet that was bigger than her old bathroom, the technology she didn't know how to use, the intercom system connecting her to the house, Elena felt herself settling into this new reality. She was here. She'd made her choice. And there was no going back. That afternoon, Alessandro found her unpacking in her sitting room. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her arrange books on a shelf. Settling in? He asked. Trying to, Elena turned to face him. This is strange. All of it. I know. He stepped inside, hands in his pockets. But you're handling it well. Am I? Because I feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. Alessandro crossed to her, his expression serious. This is your life now, Elena. Not pretend. Not temporary. You're part of this family, he paused. I spoke with the Russos this morning. Elena's heart jumped. And I made it very clear that you're under my personal protection. That touching you means war, his jaw tightened. They won't try again. Not directly. What does that mean? It means they'll watch.
Wait.
Look for weaknesses. Alessandro's eyes met hers. But as long as you're here, you're safe. I promise you that. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to feel safe.
But she'd seen his world now,
knew how fast safety could shatter. Daddy. Elena. Leo's voice echoed from somewhere downstairs. Where are you? Alessandro's expression transformed, the hardness melting into warmth. Someone's excited you're here permanently. I'm excited too, Elena admitted. Scared, but excited. Good, Alessandro smiled, genuine and rare. Fear keeps you careful, but don't let it keep you from living. He offered his arm. Come on, let's go tell my son his best friend is home for good. Elena took his arm, and together they walked downstairs to where Leo waited, bouncing with anticipation. Her old life was gone. But maybe, just maybe, this new one would be better. Leo spotted them from the grand foyer and let out a shriek of pure joy. Elena! He ran full speed, his small legs pumping, his face glowing with happiness. Elena barely had time to brace herself before he crashed into her, wrapping his arms around her waist with fierce determination. You're here. You're really here. He looked up at her, eyes shining. Daddy said you're staying forever. I'm staying, Elena confirmed, kneeling to his level. If that's okay with you. Okay? It's the best thing ever. Leo hugged her again, tighter. Now I have a daddy and an Elena. I'm the luckiest kid in the whole world. Elena's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. How had this little boy worked his way so completely into her heart? How had 10 days changed everything? I'm pretty lucky too, she whispered, kissing his forehead. Come on, I have to show you my room. And the game room. And the library, it has 1,000,000 books. Leo grabbed her hand, tugging insistently. And the gardens. We have a fountain with fish. Real fish. Leo, Alessandro said gently. Let Elena breathe. She just got here. But Daddy. How about this? Elena interrupted. You show me one thing now, and we'll explore the rest together tomorrow. Deal? Leo considered this with the seriousness of a business negotiation. Two things, Elena agreed, laughing. Yes. Leo pumped his fist and dragged her toward the stairs. First, my room. I have a telescope. As they disappeared up the staircase, Leo's excited chatter echoing through the mansion, Alessandro stood in the foyer with Rosa beside him. "That boy hasn't smiled like that since his mother passed," Rosa said quietly. "Miss Rossi is good for him." "She is." Alessandro couldn't take his eyes off the stairs where they'd vanished. Even now, he could hear Leo's laughter from somewhere above. Real laughter. The kind that came from genuine happiness, not polite pretending. "And she's good for you too, sir," Rosa added with the familiarity of someone who'd known him for 15 years. "If you don't mind me saying," Alessandro glanced at her. "Oh, you smile more. You're home more. You look at her the way you looked at Miss Maria, like she's something precious." Rosa's expression was knowing. "That girl doesn't realize it yet, but she's not just here for Leo." "Rosa, I'm just saying what everyone in this house can see." She patted his arm. "Don't wait too long to figure it out yourself." She walked away, leaving Alessandro alone with thoughts he'd been avoiding for days. Elena was here for Leo. That was the agreement, the arrangement. But even Alessandro couldn't lie to himself that well. 2 hours later, he found them in the library. Leo had fallen asleep on Elena's lap, a book about constellations open beside them. Elena stroked Leo's hair absently, staring out the window at the gardens bathed in golden afternoon light. She looked peaceful, like she belonged there. "He wore you out," Alessandro said softly from the doorway. Elena smiled, without looking away from the window. "He has the energy of 5 kids. How do you keep up?" "I don't. That's why I needed you." Alessandro entered and sat in the chair across from them. "He's going to sleep well tonight." "Good." Elena finally looked at him. "Alessandro, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why me?" She gestured around the library. "You could have hired professionals. People trained for protection, for childcare. Why trust a waitress who knew nothing about your world?" Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because everyone else would have wanted something," he said finally. "Money, status, connection to power. They'd see Leo as a means to an end." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "But you? You saw a scared little boy in the rain, and you gave him your coat. You didn't know his last name, didn't know what he could give you. You just helped because it was right. Anyone would have." "No," Alessandro's voice was firm. "They wouldn't.
People walked past him that night. Dozens of them."
You were the only one who stopped." His eyes held hers. "That's why you. Because you're good, Elena. Genuinely good. And my son deserves that. Deserves you." Elena's breath caught. "I don't know if I'm as good as you think." "You are. I've spent 20 years reading people, understanding their motives, seeing through their lies." Alessandro's intensity made her skin warm. "You're the most honest person I've ever met. And in my world, that's rarer than diamonds." They sat in comfortable silence, Leo sleeping peacefully between them. Outside, the sun painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. "I'm scared this won't last," Elena admitted. "That I'll wake up and it'll all be gone." "It'll last," Alessandro promised. "Because I don't let go of what matters. And you matter, Elena."
"To Leo."
"To this family." He paused, something vulnerable crossing his features. "To me." Before Elena could respond, Leo stirred, mumbling in his sleep. "Love you, Elena." Elena's heart cracked open. She looked down at the little boy who'd lost his mother, who'd been terrified and alone until a rainy night brought them together. "I love you too, sweetheart," she whispered. When she looked up, Alessandro was watching her with an expression that stole her breath. Not just gratitude, not just respect. Something deeper. Something that promised this was only the beginning. "Welcome home, Elena," he said softly. And for the first time in years, since before her mother got sick, since before she dropped out of school, since before the world had beaten her down into just surviving, Elena felt it. Home. Outside, Marcus stood at his post by the garden entrance, watching through the window as Elena laughed at something Leo said after waking up. Alessandro's rare smile appeared, genuine and warm. "Never thought I'd see the day," Vincent said, joining him. "What day?" "The day." Alessandro Moretti looked at someone like that. "Like she's the most important thing in the room." Marcus smiled.
About time.
That man's been alone too long. Thinks she knows that she just became the most protected woman in Chicago? The most valuable piece on the board? Marcus shook his head.
No.
She still thinks she's just the waitress who helped a kid. Good, Vincent lit a cigarette. Let her keep that innocence a little longer. World's dark enough. Inside, Leo dragged Elena toward the piano, insisting she hear him play. Alessandro followed, his calculating gaze softened into something almost tender. The woman who'd once shared her bread with a crying child at a rainy bus stop now stood in the home of one of Chicago's most powerful men, not through force or manipulation, but through the simplest gift of all: kindness. And sometimes, kindness was the strongest currency in the darkest world.